with Sheikh here, Sheikh Hassan, with us. Alhamdulillah, and he has, mashallah, knowledge more than us, alhamdulillah. So again, we're going to continue the Seerah session. Today we're going to talk about, before the last session we talked about how the idol worship was introduced in Arabia. Today we will talk about how how Judaism started and how Christianity, if we have time to go, how Christianity started. Now the king of Yemen, his name is Tabban As'ad, was traveling to Sham, and he passed next to Al-Medina, and he left his son in Medina to do business until he comes back from Sham. The people of Medina killed him, so they killed his son. So when Tabban As'ad came back and heard the news that his son was killed, he decided to destroy Medina. So he attacked, and his army was overwhelming compared to the small armies in Medina. So he could have crushed the opposition, but two Jewish rabbis came out of Medina. Now, how did the Jews get there in the first place? When the Romans destroyed Jerusalem, the Jews dispersed. Some of them went down to Arabia in search of what? In search of the promised land where the Nabi would be sent. Because they had in their books signs of the awaited prophet. So they were looking for the place where he would immigrate to. They saw these signs in Al-Medina and a few other places. So this is where the Jews settled, because these places had the resemblances of the signs of the places where the prophet would be sent. So that is why they settled in Medina. 3 Jewish tribes. Who knows the 3 tribes? Banu Qurayza, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qaynuqa. So that's how they reached Medina. So they were ethnically Jewish who immigrated when the Romans sacked Jerusalem. So these 2 Jewish rabbis came out, and they came to Tabban As'ad, and they told him, this place is protected by Allah. If you attempt to destroy it, Allah will destroy you. And they were able to convince Tabban As'ad. Now Tabban As'ad not only agreed to withdraw his army and stop attacking Medina, but he also was impressed by the religion, and he wanted to become Jewish himself. Then he invited these 2 Jewish rabbis to go with him to Yemen, and they agreed, and he became Jewish. Now on his way south, heading back to Yemen, the tribe of Hawazin, they had a problem between them and Quraysh. Now Hawazin, they had a problem with the people of Quraysh. So they wanted to make a fitna, to start a division or cause a problem between Tabban As'ad and Mecca. And they succeeded. So Tabban As'ad was contemplating attacking what? Mecca. Now these 2 Jewish rabbis, they told him, this is another town that is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You shouldn't attack Mecca. In fact, you should go into Mecca and make tawaf around the Kaaba. SubhanAllah, Jews saying this. He said, well, let's go. They said, we cannot join you. How come? They said, we are scholars. It is not appropriate for us as scholars to go and make tawaf around the Kaaba when it is surrounded by idols. So he went in and made tawaf, and Tabban As'ad was the first person ever to clothe the Kaaba. He was the first one to put clothes on the Kaaba. He would clothe it once a year. And they would do it in the past, they would bring the new one and place it over the old one, because they considered the clothing of the Kaaba sacred and they wouldn't take it off. So they kept on piling one on top of the other until the weight of it became so heavy. Eventually, they decided to take it off and just place one clothing at a time. Tabban As'ad then went with these 2 Jewish rabbis to Yemen, and they were given freedom and encouragement to spread the religion among the Yemeni tribes. And many of the tribes in Yemen did embrace the Jewish faith. So you have two types of Jews in Arabia. You have ethnic Jews in Khaybar and Medina, but then you have Jews by conversion in Yemen. So the Jews of Yemen are ethnically Arab, but they adopted the Jewish faith. So you can see that some moment of time Jews did preach their religion. Now they may not do it, but at a point of history they did preach their religion to others, and the example is in Yemen. So that's how the Jewish religion was introduced in Arabia. What about Christianity? When Isa alayhi salam was sent, some of the followers dispersed in the land, and Christianity was divided so many sects very early on, and many of these sects became disbelievers. They were misguided. However, there were pockets of believers here and there that were able to retain the true Christian faith that was preached by Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, believing in the oneness of Allah, believing in Isa as a messenger of Allah rather than being a son of God. These were concepts that were retained with some of the Christians around the world. One of these men made it into Yemen and started preaching in the area of Najran. And the religion was spreading, but secretly and privately and slowly. But that time, Tabban As'ad was already dead. And the king of Yemen was now his son, Abu Nawas or Adu Nawas. News of this new religion reached to the king, and he banned it, and he persecuted the followers. There's the story in Sahih Muslim of the king and the young man, or the young boy. Many scholars would attribute this story to the events to Adu Nawas and the Christians of Yemen. They say the king was Adu Nawas, and that story is in Sahih Muslim. So, let's go over it. Since this is the king used to deal with magic, and he had the sorcerer as his advisor. So this sorcerer was grown old in age, and he told the king that I might pass away any moment, and I need to train someone to take my place. I need to inherit my skills to someone who would carry on. So they tried to find a bright and intelligent young man, and they handpicked a young man, and they assigned him as the apprentice with the sorcerer. So he was supposed to leave early in the morning from his house to go study with who? With the sorcerer, and then come back home at night. Now this young man, on his way toward the sahir or the sorcerer, he saw a worship place, a church-like, and he heard prayers coming out from this place, which were different. He decided to go and visit it. It was a church of Tawheed, of unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, preaching the true religion of Isa alayhi salam. He was very impressed with what he was hearing, but he was supposed to be studying with who? With the sorcerer. So he asked the priest, he told him, what can I do? The priest told him, when you leave your home, visit me and study with me. And then go to the sorcerer. And if he tells you, how come you're late? Tell him, my parents delayed me. And when you go back home, come visit me again. So you have a lesson in the morning and a lesson at night. So you could take a class in the morning and a class at night. So he continued doing this for a while. One day in the marketplace, a certain beast entered the marketplace and caused chaos among the people. No one was able to deal with it. This young man said, "Oh Allah, today I want to know whether the path of the priest or the path of the sorcerer is the truth. So, oh Allah, show me the truth." And everyone was attempting to kill this beast, and no one succeeded. And this boy picked up a rock, a stone, a little stone, and said, "Oh Allah, if the path of the priest is the truth, then kill this animal." And he threw the rock, and it killed the animal immediately. He went back and reported this to the priest, and he told him what happened. The priest told him, my son, today you have achieved, you have attained a very high status. Therefore, you will be tested. You will go through trials. No one can reach such a high status without being tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, in the exams, the better the students, the more difficult the exam becomes. Because you want to differentiate between the levels of the students. So you have easy questions which everyone is able to answer, and then you have medium difficulty, and then you have difficult, and then you have very difficult, because you want to distinguish between the A plus and the A minus. So, you know, you want to tell the difference. Same thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought us on this earth for a test. And according to your level, you will be tested. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ بَلَاءً الْأَنْبِيَاء فَالْأَمْثَلْ فَالْأَمْثَلْ. The ones to go to the most difficult tests are the Anbiya, the prophets. And then it goes down according to your level. So this priest is telling this young man, you will be tested. Then he told him, when you are tested, do not disclose my name. Because the priest was doing his da'wah in secret, and he doesn't want his name to be exposed. So this is not out of fear. This is for the security of the da'wah. So he told him, when you go through trials, do not mention my name. And down the road, we will see the priest was a very courageous man. You might wonder, why is he saying, don't mention my name? What is he afraid of? I mean, how come he can't come out and say, here I am, a Muslim, invite everyone openly. Christian, of course, but it's like Islam, submit your will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is he afraid? Why is he keeping it a secret? At the end, we will see the priest was a very courageous man, and he was a wise man too. The associate of the king was blind, and he came to this young man to cure him. The young man has studied under the sorcerer. Now he is the expert. People go to him. So he went to the young man. The young man told him, I cannot heal you, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can heal you. Allah can do it. And he healed the man, subhanAllah. So the blind man is now cured. Went to the king, and the king asked him, who cured you? The man said, Allah. The king said, do you have a God other than me? The man said, yes, Allah is my Lord and your Lord. The king tortured this friend of his and told him to disclose the name of the person who taught him this. And under the persecution, he gave up the name and said, it is the young man or the boy. Now, they brought the boy and they started to torture him. And the boy, under direct pain, did give up the name of the teacher or the priest. He could not sustain the pain and suffering from what he was going through, so he disclosed the name. So now they brought the priest, and they told the priest to give up his religion, and he refused. So they brought a saw, and they placed it on top of his head, and they cut him in two. But he refused to give up his religion. SubhanAllah. This is the courage that he had, and this is the perseverance and patience. He gave up his life. He was tortured brutally, but he never gave up his religion. And now that they left with the boy. So the king ordered a group of soldiers to carry this boy and throw him from the top of a cliff, top of a mountain. They carried the boy, and subhanAllah, Allah was performing karamat on the hand of this boy. Karama is a miracle that would occur to a non-prophet, and a miracle would happen to a prophet. That is the difference between mu'jiza and karama. Mu'jiza happens to a prophet, and karama happens to a person who is not a prophet, but they are both supernatural events. So this boy made the dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Oh Allah, ibtalihim bima shit. Oh Allah, take care of them the way you want. I'm going to leave it up to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them reach the top of the cliff, and then the cliff started shaking, and all the soldiers fell. They fell down except he. And now the boy is walking back, and he entered the palace of the king and said, here I am again. The king appointed another group of soldiers. Obviously the soldiers are disposable with this king. So he appointed these soldiers to take him into a ship. When they reached into the deep waters, to throw the boy into the water. So when they were on this boat, he made the same dua. Oh Allah, take care of them the way you want. The boat capsized and they all drowned except for the boy, subhanAllah. He went back safely. So he went to the king, and the king was ready to appoint a third group of soldiers to take him. The boy told him, wait, you're not going to be able to kill me unless you do what I tell you. The king asked him, what is it? The boy said, you tie me to a tree and you gather everyone and you bring an arrow and you say, Bismillah, the Lord of the boy. Then you'll be able to kill me. So the boy told him the prescription how to kill him. The boy did this for a noble cause. What happened is the king followed the instructions and said publicly, in the name of the Lord of this boy, and the arrow hit him right in the head and he immediately died. But the result of that action is that everyone attended became what? Became Muslims, or you know what I'm saying. So he did it for the da'wah. He gave up his life so that everyone else would live, because a person is dead without Islam. The advisors of the king told him, what you were afraid of happened. I mean, the whole purpose of killing this boy is to get rid of his religion, right? And here we are stuck with our whole nation becoming Muslim. Actually, in this situation, Christians, but it is Islam that is the oneness of Allah. Now, Abu Nawas instructed the soldiers to dig trenches. After they would fill them with wood and ignite them, and everyone who refuses to give up their religion, they would throw him into the fire. And they would bring loads of people and burn them alive. And these were people who were holding firm on their faith. And they didn't give up. And then Rasulullah said there was a woman with her child in her arms, an infant in her arms. She was walking toward the fire, but she hesitated. And then imagine a woman carrying her infant. So she hesitated for a moment. And then Rasulullah said, but the infant spoke. The infant spoke and said, oh mother, be patient, because you are following the true path. And she jumped into the fire. SubhanAllah. Rasulullah said there were 3 who spoke at young age, or infants. This infant was one of them. This story is recorded in Surah Al-Buruj. Surah Al-Buruj is referring to this story. Surah Al-Buruj talks about those who were burned. Ashab al-Ukhdud, the people of the trench. Even though these people were burned alive, they ceased to exist. And the king won. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the Muslims were victorious. Now that's interesting. These people were killed. They did not establish any khilafah. The king won. How come Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْكَبِيرُ? Allah did not only call it victory. Allah said this is a great victory. Why? How come these people lost in terms of this worldly standard? Nevertheless, they're still called victorious. Victory in their regard is the fact that they were able to hold firm on their faith until the last moment. They never gave up. This is victory. Entering Jannah is victory. So even though they did not survive in dunya, but they were able to hold firm on their religion. So the father of Ammar ibn Yasir has won. Sumayyah has won. Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, even though he was killed in the battlefield, he has won. They have won in the eternal sense of winning, even though they might have lost in the temporary battle in this dunya, but the eternal battle, they have won it, because they have entered into Jannah. And Allah said, ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. That is the great victory. There is one person that survived. And this person traveled all the way to visit the Roman emperor. He went to the Roman emperor because the Roman emperor was Christian. Even though these 2 would be different Christian sects, because by that time the Romans have already adopted the Trinity and the divinity of Isa, but they still consider themselves followers of Isa. Do we have time to continue? So he went to seek help from the Roman emperor. He said, this is what happened to us. We were persecuted, we were killed, we need your help. The Roman emperor said, we are too far from Yemen, but what I could do is send a message to the Najashi, the Negus of Abyssinia, who is also Christian, and he can help you. So the Roman emperor did that, and he sent a message to a Najashi, and he sent an army led by a general named Aryad. And Aryad invaded Yemen and fought with Dunawas, and Dunawas, when he lost, he committed suicide. They say he was on his horse and he jumped into the Red Sea. He killed himself. So he lost. And now the Abyssinians were ruling over parts of Yemen. They did this as a revenge for the Christians that were killed by the Jews of Yemen. Aryad ruled over Yemen for a while. He was very strict. One of his army generals staged a revolt against him, and the Abyssinians in Yemen were divided now. A group of them were with Aryad, and the other group were with a new leader called, who knows? Abraham. And they were fighting. Aryad told Abraham, if we kill each other, the people of the land will take over. So how about we have a one-on-one fight, man to man, me and you? Abraham agreed. But Abraham made a secret agreement with some of his security guards that if you see me losing, jump in and help. If you see me winning, leave me alone. If you see that I'm losing, come in. So you have all of these people surrounding, and Abraham and Aryad are in the middle. Now Aryad was described as a tall and thin man, and Abraham was short and chubby. So Aryad, he was able to strike Abraham from the top and chopped off his nose. So Abraham was called Abraham al-Ashram. Ashram means his nose is chopped off. When that happened, the bodyguards jumped in and killed Aryad. He betrayed, obviously. It was against the rules, but the issue is over now. Aryad is dead. Abraham now took over, and he was the one ruling over Yemen. Now Abraham wanted to change the religion of the people and force them to become Christians. And since the Arabs were attached to the Kaaba, he decided to build the counterpart to the Kaaba in Sana'a in Yemen. So he built a huge cathedral called Al-Qulais, and it was described as a wonderful piece of art. Huge. I mean, he had access of wealth from Abyssinia. So they built this huge cathedral in Sana'a to compete with the Kaaba. Now, one man didn't like this idea. What he did is a bit crude. He went into Al-Qulais and he defecated. And not only that, he took it and spread it all over the walls. Stool all over the walls. And he ran away. Abraham was furious. What is this guy doing? You know, he was so angry, he decided he must get rid of what? Al-Kaaba. I mean, I'm going to end this and destroy the Kaaba. He mobilized an army and he marched toward Mecca. There was some resistance on the way. You know, one of the chiefs of a tribe, his name is Nufail, he put up a small resistance. He was defeated. I mean, Abraham had a huge, powerful army, and they captured Nufail. They captured him as a prisoner of war. When Abraham reached to Al-Ta'if, the people of Al-Ta'if assisted Abraham. And one of them offered to be a guide to Abraham for the rest of the journey. And this man, his name is Abu Rughal. So Abu Rughal, he went with the army, and immediately when they got out of Al-Ta'if, he died. So then the Arab were so upset at him that they built in the place of his death a monument that they would stone because of his what? Betrayal. Anyway, Abraham made it to the outskirts of Mecca. And there were some shepherds with camels grazing. He took possession of them. About 200 of these camels belonged to who? Who knows? Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of Rasulullah. So Abdul Muttalib came out of Mecca to meet Abraha. Now obviously Abraha, you can't just walk in and meet with him. He's such an important figure. So Abdul Muttalib had to have some kind of connection to get it. Abdul Muttalib happened to be a friend of Nufail, who was captured as a prisoner of war. Nufail was carried with this army and he became friends with a man called Unais. This man, Unais, was such an important man in the army. He was the pilot of the elephant, which was the most valuable equipment. So Nufail now is very connected. He knows Unais. So Abdul Muttalib came to Nufail and told him, I want to meet with Abraha. Nufail told him, sure, I will arrange it. I will arrange for you a meeting through my friend Unais. So Unais arranged the meeting with Abraha, and Abraha welcomed Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib walked in, and Abdul Muttalib was described as being a man with a very strong presence. By just seeing him, a person become impressed in awe. So when Abdul Muttalib came in, Abraha held him in high esteem, even though they didn't even talk yet. Now, the rules were that Abraha sits on a very high throne, and the people sit under his feet. So you come and have a meeting with Abraha, you're sitting under his feet. Abraha, when he saw Abdul Muttalib, he didn't feel comfortable at all having Abdul Muttalib sitting under his feet. So he can't also allow him to sit with him on the throne, because nobody should sit on the throne except him. So what did he do? He came down from his throne and sat with Abdul Muttalib under the throne. And he told Abdul Muttalib, he told him through the interpreter to ask Abdul Muttalib what does he want. Abdul Muttalib straight ahead told the interpreter, Abraha has taken possession of what? 200 of my camels. I want them back. Abraha responded and said, when I saw you, I had so much respect. I had so much respect for you, but I have lost it all. You know, I'm coming to destroy your honor, the honor of your fathers. I'm coming to destroy the center of your livelihood. I'm coming to destroy the Kaaba, and you're asking me about camels? Abdul Muttalib responded and said, I am the owner of the camels. So I'm responsible for them, and this house belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect it. I'm here to ask for what is under my authority and responsibility. The house belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will take care of it, and Allah will protect it. Abraha said, give him back his camels. Abdul Muttalib went back to Mecca, and he told the people of Mecca, do not fight. Withdraw out of Mecca. Abdul Muttalib gave them clear instructions. Do not fight Abraha. And they all went up to the mountains, and Abdul Muttalib was the last one to leave. Before he left, he was hanging on the clothes of the Kaaba, or the handle of the door of the Kaaba, and he was praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect his house. And then he left. So all of them have evacuated Mecca, and Abraha now issued instructions to march forth, but the elephant refused to move. They turned the elephant to a different direction, he would stand up and run. They turned him toward the direction of the Kaaba, he would sit down. SubhanAllah. How come? A miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said, the story, that this man Nufail, who was the prisoner of war, he released himself from his chains and he jumped into the ear of the elephant and said, this is the house of Allah, do not attack it. And he ran away. But whether that was the reason or not, the elephant refused to march forward towards the direction of the Kaaba. And they would beat it, and they would start poking it with spears, and the elephant was bleeding, but it refused to move. Eventually they decided they are going to leave the elephant. They made their move forward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent on them an army of what? Who knows? Birds. No one knows the soldiers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala but He. Anyone can be a soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Water, which is the source of life, can be a soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Water is what killed who? Fir'aun. Wind is a soldier of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُوَ. Allah said, no one knows His soldiers but He. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an army of birds. Every bird carrying with it missiles that were sent to the army of Abraham and destroyed them all. Every bird carrying missiles, stones, pebbles from Jahannam, I think. Allahu Alam. They were all killed. And this event was recorded in Surah Al-Fil. SubhanAllah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. I'm going to be traveling overseas, so inshallah we'll continue when I come back, or Sheikh Hassan inshallah will continue.